2, 1. $6.59, $6.59. Saludos a toda nuestra gente de este continente.
Mr. Aloha.
7. All right. We are here. Plaza Comati, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight for E-DECOLONIZE class number 5. I am really excited to be here tonight, sharing space with you, with everyone, and also with a very great person, a great teacher who is joining us tonight, Cuitlahuac Martinez from speaknahuatl.com. Before I introduce Cuitlahuac with more detail, I want to go over just some of the basic things we always cover in E-DECOLONIZE. My name is Citlalli Anahuac. I am your professor for these free 10-week E-DECOLONIZE courses. And with that, we are going to begin. So thank you very much for tuning in. This course tonight, E-DECOLONIZE, is the 5th class. These courses are recorded live, and at the end, I do make it available right away for everyone who was not able to join us tonight. So to begin, that is Cuitlahuac Martinez. It's going to be Introduction to the Nahuatl Language and the Importance of Language Revitalization. Per usual, what's going to happen tonight, just want to let you know that we want to make sure, as I always say, that this is a safe space for our community. I do this for free because I am passionate about making sure that we all know this history. We all know this knowledge. It doesn't matter what age you are. Doesn't matter what educational background you have. You know, we should all, as Indigenous people, as Indigenous people, brown people of the Western Hemisphere, we should know this information. So this is a safe space. I do invite my students to help me monitor any racist, anti-Black, anti-LGBTQ comments will be immediately blocked or deleted. Not particularly by myself. I do want to let you know that this is a collective. So I empower my students to go ahead and do that for me. I do this for free and I don't have time to spend on addressing toxicity. So this is a place that I am creating. This is a corner of my little world. And I share this with all the love and respect that I have for my people. Just to let you know, this is free. However, if you do want to contribute to the work that I do, the different projects that I do have 3 cash apps that you can contribute to. I have Zelle, I have Cash App, and I have Venmo. So you can do that. I do want to thank those of you who have already donated to what I do. I'm really appreciative of your help and support. And per usual, every E-DECOLONIZE course has a Google form called for feedback. I'm really interested in getting to know your thoughts, your evaluation of the content of my approach. As a professor that is in the process of hopefully getting hired soon at a community college, I look forward and I take this very seriously, my content, what I do, and I'm always looking for ways to improve as well as address any questions that my students may have. So now that we have talked about that, we are going to get right to it. So I'm introducing you Cuitlahuac Martinez. He is a Nahuatl teacher, activist, English-Spanish language interpreter. He's been doing this for many years. And he is sharing space with us tonight, offering his time. If you want to support speaknahuatl.com, there is a website that I'm going to share at the end. And all of the contacts that you want to do for speaknahuatl.com, you can find at the bottom of this video description. So with that, yeah, and also we are going to take questions at the end. So Cuitlahuac is going to share space, the lesson introduction to Nahuatl. And at the very end, we are going to be taking questions. So with that, Tlaxocamati, thank you for joining us tonight. We are really excited to share space with you. And with that, I will close my slide. And Cuitlahuac, please do the honor of guiding us to your course.
No problem. Tlaxocamati, hermana, for holding space for me. I know it's been a few years that we know each other, and I watched you do your journey, and you collaborate with me with with our podcast, and I am very appreciative of that and your support. And let's get to it. So, intro to the Nahuatl language. So let me just go ahead and share the screen. Oh, I think I'm already sharing the screen, right? Okay.
Yes, we're good.
I know we're all getting used to all this technology. Okay. So, so first I'd like to talk about the images that we see here. So all of these images are from the Florentine Codex. So it's a 12 book series that was written in the 16th century in central Mexico. And if you notice, all of them have this symbol, right? This speech symbol. So this is uh, how they signify that they're speaking, that they're talking. So first I'd like to talk about land acknowledgement. So it's important to honor where you live. It's important to acknowledge where you live. So to find out, you can go to native-land.ca. So achtoy nikistosneki nitzotzongotlali, nanotoka Cuitlahuac, Nahuatl Martinez, Nahuatlamachtihquetl, Chicolisli, Tlajaltapasoli, one speaknahuatl.com. So what I just said is that my name is Cuitlahuac, and my last name is Martinez, and I'm a Nahuatl language teacher of Tlajaltapasoli, our collective, and speaknahuatl.com. So after an acknowledgement, let's get into some of the. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you can do it in the chat box. You can say your name, organization that you're from, maybe your school you're from, or collective you're from. You can even say the traditional lands of which you are on, what city you are from. Like Hermana Citlalli said, this is a safe space for everyone, so zero tolerance on any discriminatory comments. Questions can be asked in the chat box, or you can send me an email to speaknow@gmail.com. Um, Now, class updates and news articles about indigenous languages or indigenous language revitalization. You can go to speaknahuatl.com. For Nahuatl learning resources, you can go to tlaxoltapasoli.com. And my summer 2020 session via Skype will be next month, and you can sign up. Registration closes next Friday. So all the links are below, so you can go ahead and click on those links. So what is the purpose of this lesson, this course? So it's to understand who spoke Nahuatl, who speaks Nahuatl today, and also acknowledge the existence of Nahuatl Spanish, Nahuatl Castellano, Nahuatl Español. Also understand what is language revitalization, what is language revival, and also why learn an indigenous language. So first of all, what's a language? So it's a form of communication between a group of people. It's oral right now, so we're using the English language. It's oral, talking, it's written. You can write down what I'm saying. There's also grammar, right? So you can communicate the present, I'm talking. the past I talked, in the future I will talk, right? So you can also communicate through gestures and also body language, so and also sign languages. So you can communicate in different ways. And also the question is as to why learn a new language, right? So there's each language has its own worldview, right? So me growing up as a bilingual student, English and Spanish, so I would navigate through both worlds, right? So especially, hold on, let me just grab some water. So when you're talking Spanish and you're talking English, sometimes se te olvida lo que quieres decir en inglés, or you forget how to say something in Spanish, and so then you say it in English, and so you can do some code switching. So each language has its own worldview. It's also healthy for your brain. So it helps with memorization. It helps with also with a longer attention span. So it's healthy for your brain. And because you're learning from a different point of view, a different worldview, a different culture, it also creates less prejudice and appreciation of other cultures, right? So cultural diversity. And also, it also assists in language realization to halt repression and keep it alive. So to stop it and to keep it alive. So we'll get into more into language revival later on. And also, one of the purposes was to understand that we speak Nahua Spanish, Nahua Castellano. Um, so there, you don't have to necessarily be Mexican or Mexican national, but in general, just speak Spanish from a Spanish speaking country, right? So we have Mexican Spanish, right? On the left, aguacate, tomate, chocolate, comal, tamal, tianguis, coyote, molcajete. So on the left, you have the Mexican Spanish words, right? And on the right, you have the Nahuatl words from which they come from. So aguacate is aguaca. Tomate, toma. Chocolate, chocola. Comal, comali. Tamal, tamali. Tianguis, tianquis. Or tianquis. Coyote, coyote. Molcajete, molcashi. So these are just a few words that come from Nahuatl in Mexican Spanish, right? So um, now in terms of how many languages are spoken within the Mexican state, there are 68 indigenous languages from the Baja California Peninsula, right, almost to the north, and all the way south to the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, these 68 languages are divided into 11 language families. Now, what is a language family? A language family is a group of closely related languages, sort of like in context of maybe your relatives, your tias. So you're all related, you're all family, and you all come from an ancestral language, one language. So for example, it's the Proto-Euro-Aztecian language in Nahuatl. So in the Proto-Euro-Aztecian language, um, there is um, The Proto-Aztec language is the language from all this family right here in the green, and it also goes through into southwestern U.S. Um, and it's all in the green right here. Now, where is Nahuatl spoken? So Nahuatl is spoken in different parts of Mexico. There's not just like one area where you can say, okay, well, here's where they speak Nahuatl. So it's in parts of these states or these cities, right? Estado de Mexico, Puebla, Guerrero, Hidalgo, Veracruz, Oaxaca, Durango, Morelos, Tlaxcala, Jalisco, San Luis Potosí, Michoacán, Nayarit. So it's important to know that it's parts of those states, not the whole state, okay, or not the whole city itself. Um, there are figures of 1.5 million, over 1.5 million speakers. There are also figures of also 1.7 million speakers, so close to 2 million speakers speaking 30 different variants, as well as dialect variants. Um, so here are the Nahuatl dialects and some other languages as well. That are part of the Nahuatl language families. So here we have in the white, so here are the Nahuatl dialects of variants in Mesoamerica. Mesoamerica is mostly what's all of Mexico, so all of this right here, and trickling down into Central America. So in the white is where you have Nahuatl speaking peoples today, and in the gray are historically where Nahuatl speaking peoples are. So without considering these colonial borders, we have Huasteca dialects right here. And then we also have Nahuatl Pipil, right? So Nahuatl Pipil is also a closely related language to Nahuatl. It's considered its own language, but I also see it as a dialect, as a variant, because I'm also able to understand it. So in terms of those speakers, Nahuatl PP right now, there unfortunately there's only 200 speakers, the last figure that I saw. So it's important to know that. And I believe there is a young fellow that is reviving it. He has a website, Nahuatl, and he has a YouTube channel. So that's also being revived. So who spoke Nahuatl? So most popular indigenous group to have spoken Nahuatl were the Aztecs or the Mexica. So it was used as a lingua franca, meaning the common language for all indigenous groups and nations and tribes to communicate for trade, for politics, for exchanging information. But it wasn't just them that spoke Nahuatl, but it was also the Kashkan, Akoas, Tlaxcaltec, among others. Now, who speaks Nahuatl today? Now, modern Nahuatl, meaning people who speak Nahuatl today. So Nahuatl, Mexico can be divided into the colonial borders of the Mexican state, as well as the states themselves, the 32 states, but also in regions, especially like geographical regions. For example, the Huasteca, which is the Huasteca is in parts of San Luis Potosí, Hidalgo, Veracruz, parts of Puebla, and also Tamaulipas. So the variants and the dialects can be divided into the regions, into the towns, into the small towns. For example, we have Nahuatl del Alto Atlas in Guerrero. We have Nahuatl de la Sierra Norte de Puebla, Nahuatl de la Huasteca. We have Nahuatl de Texcoco, We have Nahuas de Milpa Alta. We have Nahuas de la Montaña. Nahuas de Texcoco is in the Estado de Mexico. Nahuas de Milpa Alta is in Mexico City. Nahuas de la Montaña, also in Guerrero, like the Balsas. And we also have Nahuas de la Costa Sierra de Michoacán. So that's only seven, right? Seven regions, seven dialects represented compared to, the those were only seven. Now of those seven, we have the 30, right? So the 30 modern variants. So according to the Mexican government, 30 modern variants have been documented. So there's a lot of variety in this language. A lot of different ways of saying things. It just depends on the town. So there's a variant, the region. So we specifically learn and teach the one from the Huasteca. And the Huasteca, like I mentioned, is parts of Tamaulipas, San Luis Potosí, also parts of Guerrero, Hidalgo, Veracruz, Puebla. Um, the area with the most Nahuatl speakers is actually this area, and they live in these three states: San Luis Potosí, Hidalgo, and Veracruz. So there is in the area of the Huasteca, there is they still have ceremonies and rituals for deities. This one is especially important to the Nahuas from the Huasteca. Chicome Xochitl, Chicome from seven, and Xochitl uh, flower, meaning that there are seven different types of corn. This is a very important deity. It's the corn deity, it's the fertility deity, it's a deity that represents human sustenance. So part of the ceremony here is to cut um, a picture or visual, in this case, cut paper, into the shape of a deity. Now you see a petate, a petlatl, you see a candle, you see water, you see some petlat, you see some soda. These are these are all offerings for deity. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play it. And then we'll get back. So that's a video of one of the ceremonies. And also another way of learning, which I also do in my classes, I also like to play some of the audios of spoken Nahuatl by native speakers. So there's this Instituto Nacional de los Pueblos Indígenas, or National Institute of Indigenous Nations in Mexico. So they have a lot of audios on indigenous languages and also indigenous music. So I attempt to collect all of the audios that are Nahuatl and I put them in playlists. So I'm going to allow you to listen to a few minutes, a couple minutes of how this language is spoken. Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a few minutes for you to listen to how the language is spoken, to how the sounds are, so you can get used to the sounds and how to pronounce this language, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and play it as well. So as you may see, as you go along, also listen for words that keep being repeated. Um, so these audios are about COVID-19 and what's going on. To stay and social distancing, to stay in the community, so things like that as well.
Gobierno de México. No yo likni. Y de chuate mayo más igual de cuartis totoga de ya cinco goles de coronavirus. Tan liatiga y de chopse semana o caltepet. Shimuko pamugalistic y pano con goles. Matigi panita gasten que esto bante que wakame y de chuate pe mayoba. Shimukama mogalistic. Shikchi ay kanapatente que bakame. Yepan que todos que manía yeguelites tigimitate muchanecaba. Tanahuaticapa Instituto Nacional de los Pueblos Indígenas. Tequihuatl Tanapatía, México. No yo likni. Y de chuate pe mayoba más igual de cuartis totoga de ya cinco goles de coronavirus. Tan liatiga y de chopse semana o caltepet. Shimuko pamugalistic y guayo pano con goles. Matigi panitaga tenki tuatigi wakame y de chuate pe mayoba. Shimukama mogalistic. Shikchia y tanapatil tigabakame. Yepan que todos que envía yeguelites tigimitate muchanecaba. Tanahuaticapa Instituto Nacional de los Pueblos Indígenas. Tequihuatl Tanapatía, México.
Tochanecagua, Xquilnamica. Pallejuanito calpajua cachuelis techasis un cucolistli te toca coronavirus. Tlatinemi huesca, no sopan oxe calpa, amush mucuepa pallejuan tonalme. Matica quicatla en quitoa un tequihuasque, tencate pa un calpajme, huanqueno yehuame mutlaspía. Xmucagua pa mocha. Guan chiama quitoca un tequihuasque, tlayahuelis tiquintlaspaloti un moteixmatcagua. Instituto Nacional de los Pueblos Indígenas.
Gobierno de México.
Tehual, guante, Shimat que de Niquín pueblo, más igual me, Hualicatías que incucoliste de Niquín coronavirus, de Niquín país que o de Niquín no pueblo, Chivieja rotiquel, de no parecías que payel Niquín cuarentena, tic respetar que de Niquín medida, control, cati chantil, Shimuka que el cacalquel, in salud que den lo que te Nahuatlías que yel Niquín seguro, an más igual me cayó uno chantil que Instituto Nacional que el de Niquín Pueblo, más igual me
Gobierno de México.
So you just heard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words represented in these audios. So you can hear, even though you don't understand what they're saying, you can hear how the language is spoken. So next, let's talk about language revitalization. So also let me go ahead and explain the image that we see here, right? So we have a symbol for languages, the world, 2 people talking, and 7K. So this means that there are 7,000 languages that are spoken today. This is just like a rough estimate because there's also speculations on what is considered to be a language or what is considered to be a dialect, right? So think about the linguistic diversity, right? Um, different ways, different worldviews. So in order to understand the importance of language revitalization, we need to understand what it is, right? So it's also referred to as language revival or reversing language shift. Is an attempt to halt or reverse the decline of language or to revive an extinct one. Those involved can include parties such as linguists, cultural community groups, or governments. So it's essentially to stop or to revive a language, to stop the sleeping or the extinction of a language to die or to keep it alive as well. Now, it is imperative to keep a language alive because once it dies, then its own worldview dies as well. It's also imperative to reclaim and relearn our original languages because it helps us to see the world from our ancestors' point of view. Excuse me. Now, how does a language die? Now, in order for us to understand how a language dies, um, there's language devitalization, right? So colonization is the direct cause of a decline in these languages. So if this were not to happen, then we wouldn't have to be able to be reviving our languages or even talking about going back to our roots and learning the language we are to learn. So colonization is a direct cause, right? It's genocide, so the physical removal of people. Genocide is also the physical death of people, right? And with that, there's ethnocide, so the death
Um,
of an ethnicity, right? There's
Cuitlahuac,
also, yes?
so sorry to bug you. There's a little static coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking 3 of my sources and there's like staticky,
Oh,
like
okay.
on,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
It's like it comes and goes, but I'm not sure what's
Yeah.
happening there. So
Yeah, I'm
keep
not
talking
sure.
and
Yeah.
then, okay.
Uh-huh. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, you're good. It just comes and
Okay.
goes a little bit. I'm not sure if the
Let me
mic.
see. Can you still hear me?
Keep talking.
So genocide, ethnocide, cultural side, linguistic side.
That sounds a little bit better because it kind of comes at the beginning and end of your sentences.
Okay. So
That's better. That's
with
Mati.
genocide, there's also ethnocide, so the death of an ethnicity. And when you kill physically an ethnicity, you also kill their culture. So when you kill their culture, you also kill their language, and not that's linguicide, right? So also imperialism helps and assists with extending um, the death of a language, right? So imperialism is just basically to extend the settler society's power. For example, with manifest destiny, right? So also with the forced displacement that facilitates for settlers to gain access to land. So this basically weakens cultures and assimilates indigenous populations. Um, and therefore settlers can gain access to land. So we're going to focus on linguicide, right? Because this is the direct um, cause to for us to be in this language revitalization, language revival work, because of language death. So that occurred, that was accelerated with the existence of Indian residential schools in Canada from the 1830s up until the late 90s. Also with the Indian boarding schools in the US up until the late 90s as well. Um, so basically, these schools were designed to assimilate children, indigenous children, to white settler society, and just teach them English or French in Canada as well. And if you want to talk about North, Central, and South America, then we should include also Portuguese. Um, um, and there was also with people being in, with children being sent to these residential schools, unfortunately, they also suffer a lot of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. So, you know, you're no longer able to speak your tongue. Um, you're put through all these abuses, and you're purposely being sent away, far away from the place that you live, right? From reservations. So it made it harder for their families to go visit them, right? So here are two pictures. The picture on the right is a picture of the students of St. Anne's Indian Residential School in Fort Albany in Ontario, in Canada. And here is another picture. This one is, to be honest, a disturbing picture of indigenous children at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania. This one in 1900. So the superintendent at that school, his name was Henry Pratt, and he is the one that coined that term, kill the Indian, save the man. So being an indigenous person of these lands was seen as backward, as primitive. So that is basically what he meant. Now, language was used and is still being used as an assimilation tool. We have this book, the Nicamaboa, that was written in the 1680s in Mexico by Spanish friars. It was basically a tool to further evangelize the native population. This book told the story of Juan Diego and Tonantzin. So also, settler colonial authorities like Canada and the U.S., they saw a relationship between the land and the language on which it is spoken, right? So they focused that attention and they focused to break that up. And that occurred with, displacing communities far away from their territories. This facilitated taking over their land, which was the main point, right? Because the settlers' way was to take over the lands and just, build houses and just for their own benefit. Um, so with you taking over a land, so then you're going to rename it, right? So they used the power of language and they renamed these established white settler societies, like, we have the United States of America and also, provinces in Canada, like British Columbia, right? Right. And then, so also, settlers saw their Christianity as superior to indigenous beliefs. And so there are translations of the Bible in basically uh, hundreds of indigenous languages. Also, with Jehovah Witnesses, they have their pamphlets that are passed around in indigenous languages. So it's another way of continuing the expansion of essentially Europeanized or Castilianized indigenous people, right? So right here we have an example of the Bible written in Nahuatl, right? So it says Nopa Cuitlahuac Juan. So these good words that Juan wrote is what it says in the title. So it's a history of using language to use an indigenous language to facilitate the evangelization of indigenous people. But there are also efforts of completely eliminating them, right? So the genocide that occurred on these lands. Now also there with language revitalization and language revival, we also have to understand that it's a huge topic and it involves a whole community. It involves community members, indigenous peoples themselves. It involves linguists. It also involves the community wanting to revive their language, right? So to stop the language from sleeping. So now terminology is also important. So the word extinction as opposed to now the word sleeping, we can stop a language from sleeping by community-led projects that prioritize the young people, kids, with environmental knowledge. So because you teach children, because hopefully they will also pass it down, they will learn it and pass it down to the children if they so would like to have children as well. Now it's not just teaching kids and children the numbers and the colors, but it's also teaching them the grammar. And I mean, one of the main goals is to increase the number of speakers within a language, right? But that's just one of the main goals. One of the main goals is to work as a community and learn and understand what those goals are, what that looks like for your community. And that can help guide the curricular decisions in the classroom, right? Because we have different people for different ages. As students, anywhere from ages of 20s all the way to elder age. So it's also, and also some ages from 6 to 12. So it's also catering to that and teaching across different generations, especially children, like I mentioned. And also for women, and if they so would like to have children, you know, also teaching women because they may also pass it down to their children if they would like to have children in the future. Also taking advantage of technology, right? So especially now with what's going on with COVID and the pandemic, we've been forced to use these technologies, right? We've been forced to communicate online, to teach online. Um, so also having apps, dictionary apps, games to attract a younger audience. And like I mentioned, it's a collaboration of community, governments, academics, linguists. So it's a community-based effort with language revitalization. Now there's also mentor apprentice programs across Canada and the U.S. And the purpose is to make fluent speakers of language. Um, Now, these fluent speakers are partnered with committed learners in an immersion environment, whether it be just teaching in a target language, in a classroom setting, online, or on the traditional lands on which it is spoken. So those are some of the ways in which we can keep a language alive. Um, and you know, this is just touching the surface. There's a lot of work to be done, and like I mentioned, it's just a community, you know. Now, in the work that we do and how we go along teaching our classes, we also consider teaching methods, right? And what are the best methods to teach? What methods don't work or methods have worked? Um, and again, each language, each community, each environment depends on many factors. So the way that we have done it is through the use of two methods that have effectively worked. Um, so we have two main goals in our Nahuatl Study Collective, Tlajoltapostoli, which means language nest. The first one is to be able to speak Nahuatl, to increase the number of speakers. The second step is to also create teachers. And these two techniques have helped us both, at least in my experience, has helped us learn ourselves and also teach the community, right? So the first one is total physical response, and it uses physical movement to react to verbal input. So you use the language and then there's action to it, right? So it mimics the way that infants learn their first language, and it reduces stress and inhibitions in the student, right? So that's a very important technique to use. It's used in English as a second language classes. There's also Where Are Your Keys, which was created by our relatives up in the north in Canada. This uses gestures and techniques that only use the target language, and it's a complete immersion. So basically just diving into the language that you want to learn. So in this case, it's Nahuatl. So in this video, it's a combination of both in a way, and it can be used with any amount of people. In this case, it's 2 people. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play it.
Cuitlahuac, we're not hearing any sound.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We heard it like in the
Oh.
beginning, poquito, pero ya, se fue.
I'm not sure what's going on, to be honest. Can you hear it now?
No, it's like slow motion.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what to do. We're having technical issues.
Or you could just kind of
But
tell us
I
what's
will
happening.
share this presentation so you can have it a later time. And you can watch it yourself. But can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound way better. Tlazo Comati.
Okay. Perfect. So and lastly, why learn an indigenous language? So this is basically coming from my point of view. So reclaiming your language, at least in my experience, reclaiming my language, I have felt empowered. I have felt in a way, that has also helped me improve my mental health. I have written, poems in Nahuatl and reciting them out loud and just feeling all these emotions, so also with colonization, a lot of people have lost their self-value. So by reconnecting to my roots, my heritage, to my spirituality in general, and to my intellect, that's I've been able to regain a sense of identity that has been lost, and also that's also learning about your roots is uh, it's a very long journey, it involves a lot of research. And like I mentioned earlier, learning an indigenous language, you help with language revitalization, right? So you help to keep it from dying, from sleeping. And Also, another question that I did get is like, why do you want to learn Nahuatl? Why do you want to learn indigenous language? I mean, it's because if we keep learning European languages, then we will continue to identify as European. So it's also understanding that this has been an 500 plus interruption, but our ancestors have lived here since time immemorial. So since about 15,000 years ago, so that is what I have today on today's lesson. Tlaskamati for listening. Tlaskamati Citlalli for having me here and holding space. But I know we had some technical issues. We were not expecting it. But here we are.
Tlazokamati. Tlazokamati, Cuitlahuac. This part, technical problems is, it's all part of the online, community. So we rolled with it. We appreciate everyone that rolled with it too. If I can just ask you, before we get to the questions from our viewers and the students coming in, I have a question for you. I think one of the biggest confusions and it's also part of the racism against, indigenous languages, is the difference, or why people call it el dialecto, right? Or like los dialectos, like what's, every time I hear that I cringe, because I'm like, no, can you tell us why that's wrong? What is un dialecto? What is a dialect compared to what is a language? Because a lot of our people get, unfortunately, because of the racism, because of our self-hate, because of the way that we minimize indigenous culture and language, we tend to say, es un dialecto, están hablando en el dialecto.
Yeah, so a dialect is part of a language. So think of a language as a tree. So we have the English language, right? So we have American English, we have Australian English, South African English. So those are the variants. Those are, and also you can take the American English style variant, right? So someone from the East Coast, someone from the West Coast, for someone from Southern California. So those are different dialects and different variants of English. Now in Mexico, they call them dialectos because there is, at least in my studies with Nahuatl, Nahuatl in itself has 30 variants. So again, there's a lot of variety in this language. So each language is also like that. Each language has all of these dialects, has multiple dialects. Now, in terms of why people say this in Mexico, it's part of the inferiority of indigenous people. It's part of the displacement and continued genocide of indigenous people. It's part of dumbing them down. It's part of, making them seem like they're inferior to European languages. So that's why there's always that there's a stigma with being indigenous and talking indigenous language and dressing as an indigenous person. But I mean, best believe I do correct my my relatives on that aspect. But yeah, that's a very good question.
Tlazokamati, Cuitla, do me a favor. Can you stop the share so we can, I'm going to have a share towards the end.
Sure. There you go.
Tlazokamati, let me get this on here. Okay, awesome. And another question, or actually a point I wanted to make out. Historian Federico Navarrete, and I'm always talking about him, but he argues that when Mexico became Mexico, that there were more Nahuatl speakers than there were Spanish speakers in Mexico. So he argues that they could have easily nationalized the Nahuatl language, which we know that there was a lot more languages spoken, but at that time, from his understanding and a lot of historians, they say that Nahuatl was kind of like the the language of the market, the language of trade, the language of the Pocheteca, you know, the traveling, you know, marketing. So I thought that was interesting because when we're talking about identity, language has so much to do with identity, which is, you know, the whole thing about being called Hispanic or Latino. The very first thing that they use is, oh, the Spanish language. Oh, we speak Spanish, right? And so when we're looking at the demographics and we're learning, like you're sharing in our family tree, those of us who do not speak our original languages anymore, if you shake your family tree, you will find that great grandfather, that great grandmother who was the last to speak one of our original languages, which I think is so powerful in the work that you're doing. And so I just wanted to share that because I think history teaches us like it happened 500 years ago. It's all done. And then now we're here. And that totally negates the fact that our people continue speaking their languages today. There's a lot of efforts in Mexico, a lot of efforts throughout the Western Hemisphere to bring to light the beauty, the diversity within our languages. But also too, I wanted to ask you your particular interest with speaknahuatl.com, if we can get into that a little bit. For people that are watching this and want to learn more, want to join the courses, can you tell us about what people need to do to sign up? I know there's a lot of families watching that are interested. What's the process like if they want to learn Nahuatl with speaknahuatl.com, the language collective?
So basically what I've been doing lately is posting a flyer to the class. Right now we have classes every Monday evening. And also next month I'm gonna have the summer session. So basically just go to speaknahuatl.com, go to the Instagram speaknahuatl, and just stay posted there. You'll see the flyers. Basically what I request is to fill out a form, either a Google form or send me an email to speaknahuatl.com, and I'll send you a link to the class itself. I've slowly been transferring my students to Skype, but now we also have Zoom now. So I've slowly, been able to maneuver this as well to learn all these technologies, because I have been using Skype for the past 2 years now. So for me to transfer to Zoom, I'm just like, whoa, what is this? So currently right now they're on Skype. Eventually maybe we'll transfer them to Zoom. For the time being, it's through Skype. And we do recommend our students, if you do have the resources, to use a computer or a tablet to make it a better learning experience.
Awesome. And I'm looking now at some of the questions here. I also want to let people know that all the links that Cuitlahuac mentioned, the website, contacting, speaknahuatl.com, his particular contact, it's all under the video description. So right now, as you're watching this video, you could just scroll down the video description and you will find it there. So it's really so important that we support these efforts. And we have a question here. It says, Sin 420, would it be better to learn Nahuatl before Spanish, since they only teach European Spanish? It's one of the questions we have.
That's really up to you. It's really up to your own personal choice. So for me, I started learning Nahuatl because, there was a trip I took to Mexico City, and for them to just like say my name, and not even question how to pronounce it, or Cuitlahuac, así como sin nada. That really it made me feel empowered to learn it, and going through my family history, I was able to learn that, in the area where my ancestors are from, there were Nahuatl speaking people, or also maybe possibly Kashkan speaking people, or Purepecha speaking people. So it was like a crossroads. So It's really up to you if you want to learn as well. I know in this decolonizing journey, and again, decolonizing in itself is a very personal journey. So it looks different for a lot of people. For mine, language, like you said, Citlalli, language is identity. So I want to assist my people with language. But learning Spanish is also good because a lot of our elders speak Spanish, so yeah, I mean, either Spanish or Nahuatl, whichever you prefer,
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things I don't think people understand, like I changed my name to Nahuatl when I was 19. I wasn't born with this name. Part of my decolonization journey, learning that my tatarabuelo was the last to speak Nahuatl from my family, that was enough for me to say, I need to reclaim myself, right? And as much as I can. But your case is different. You were born with the name Cuitlahuac, right? So, speaking about language and the importance of language, what role did that play in your life growing up? And how has that changed through your process, through your journey of decolonization? Woo!
Ooh, hermana, what a question. Estoy
Otra hora. Where to
Estoy
begin? Let me get my tea. Nothing.
Nochima sewalme ipa no nemilis nech tlatlanili melawa tlen motoka. So what I just said is, like, in my life, a lot of people have asked me, what's really your name? No, ¿cómo te llamas de verdad? Jose, Carlos. And I'm like, no, my name is Cuitlahuac. Me llamo Cuitlahuac, So I feel that IDECA was bound to do this. So it has assisted in being empowered to learn and teach this language, because I've had a love-hate relationship with my name, because I would have been called like, oh, it is Indio, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just Mexicano, I'm not sure, but.
And what did your parents say about the name? Like, did you ever ask them, like, where does the name come from? Or donde salió Cuitlahuac? Or
Well, that's my dad's name.
Oh, dale. Okay.
It's my dad's name. And I'm assuming that, my grandpa was into, our cultura, so that's why he named him Cuitlahuac.
Awesome.
But my mom was like, no, yo te quería llamar Carlos. So I would have been
Cuitlahuac one. And what does Cuitlahuac mean, by the way?
So it comes from the word Cuitlatl and Huaxqui. Cuitlatl can be poop, excrement, or something that comes out of your, organs. So it could be like poop or like earwax. And some native speakers have told me that it means like also algae. So dry algae. So algae
nice.
Dry.
We have another question here. They're asking, how much are the courses for Nahuatl?
Oh, so if you go to the link at tinyurl/PCC Summer 2020, so it'll tell you there. So it's 8 courses, and it's 90, and it's paid through VENMO. And it's 8 courses, and it's gonna be well, not 8 courses, 8 weeks. 8 weeks, Monday through Friday, 1 hour. So it's an intense course. So if you're ready to learn and commit, you can go ahead and go to that link, click the link. You'll find out more information. You can put in your information. There's even a video of a class. So a sample of how classes are taught, YouTube link, so you can watch that as well.
Awesome. Tlazohcamati, Tlazohcamati. Okay,
Sure.
and just lastly, just to end, one last question. I know we went over time a little bit. One last question. So what relationship do you think, language revitalization plays with decolonization? Like, how do you connect those two journeys together? How do they interconnect in our process?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, if we continue to learn English and Spanish, and Portuguese, and French, then we will continue to identify as European. We will continue to identify with being Latino or Latinx or so it's important to also understand that when we identify as such, we are somehow disrespecting our ancestors that have been here, since time immemorial. So even prior to 1492, right? So it's also, understanding that as well. So not sure. Did I answer your question? I'm like, did I go too far?
No. Tlazohcamati. Tlazohcamati, Cuitlahuac, I want to thank you again for sharing space with us. A lot of people had messaged me and were really, really excited to be able to listen, right, to an introduction. None of us have ever, right, had this great gift to be able to sit down and actually understand a nice introduction to the Nahuatl language. And it's a beautiful gift that you shared with us. I'm really, really honored. I hope that people connect with you under speaknahuatl.com. And like I said, those connections you can find under the video description. And I wanted to let everyone know for next week, as we're continuing our E-DECOLONIZE, we want to be able to unpack the next course. We're going to continue this with talking about the Census 2020, ID Native 2020, decoding demographic genocide. So I'm doing my best.
Tell them, sis.
Yes, and Cuitlahuac has actually, we've done a collab together. We have a video on YouTube that you guys can check out where we unpack in Spanish and English. Nos falta uno Nahuatl, pero Spanish and English about decolonizing the census. So next Friday, that's what I'm working on, is the history of the census, the problems with it, the issues with it, the language with it, and how we are proposing we can use it for representation and power and a way to reclaim who we are. And again, as Cuitlahuac was talking about, genocide impacts language, identity, resources, lands, who we are, our health, our access to who we are and our beautiful culture. So with that, I just wanted to say, Tlazohcamati, if you can please fill out the Google form that's at the bottom of the video description, I would really, really appreciate it. That way we can get to know your feedback, get to know you as well and follow up. And yeah, let's stay tuned for next Friday, same time, same place, E-DECOLONIZE. Our class will be Census 2020. We're going to unpack identity and the power of demographics in the so-called US. So with that, Cuitlahuac, I want to say again, Tlazohcamati, and let us continue building together. Let us continue supporting each other. Let us continue creating these spaces for our people. It's much needed. And I appreciate you, Cuitlahuac. Tlazohcamati.
No, Tlazohcamati to you as well. Wali.